So, Mr. Joel. I'm certain you remember this.
The first is, I'm not sure exactly what advice the left is giving to young men that is brain dead. Like, what are people saying? What's going on?
So the title of this video is actually How to Man Like a Leftist. And as such, I said in the original video where I was talking about Big Joel and how the left just kind of isn't really designed for men. If you haven't watched that video, I suggest you watch it. There's continuity here at BASSFZz. I said that leftists spend a lot of time deconstructing males, but not any time reconstructing males. Now, I'm technically responding to the end of this video and not the other 16 minutes of it, because the first 16 minutes of it are as such a deconstruction. Not a very good deconstruction, but they are all elements that I intend on, at least for some of them, revisiting to look at, to again show you guys the error of leftism, and that is there's only deconstruction of things, never any reconstruction of things. In fact, just briefly from looking at this point, I'm going into it fresh because, I want you guys to have my authentic thoughts, and I also want to challenge my clairvoyance skill. I just saw the first couple of sections here, and it just opens up again with a deconstruction. So we're going to look at this actual advice, because the whole of the video is not really technically advice at all until you get to this section, and we're going to see if it is actually good or bad. Again, I'm challenging my clairvoyance here, so I'm pretty sure that it's not going to be good at all. Anyway, he'll take us away.
Help side of social media needs help. Because the type of help that they say that they provide is built on a very rickety premise. Let me put it to you plainly. All dating advice is bullshit. There's no set of words, no amount of riz. I can't believe I just said that. That will get you whomever you desire.
Now, the irony here is that the faulty premise is yours. In fact, no dating advice, no honest dating advice claims that you can get whoever you want. That's marketing. Dating advice, for the most part, at least from the manosphere, or at least in red pills, even black pill dating advice really, are all about effective measures of what gets results. Whether it's wrong or whether it's right is what needs to get tested. But the long and short of it is, this is what's effective, this is what women respond to, this is what you should do. Now, where they may get a bit rickety is the determinism of it all. Perhaps there are hypergamies, perhaps they get to their halo effects, perhaps there is an over-analyzation and a bit too much of reduction as to women just kind of working as automatons that just respond to stimuli, although there is a little truth to women just responding to a lot of emotional stimuli. The long and short of it is, the advice is just about what works. What works. Being tall and handsome kind of allows you to get away with murder. Sometimes literally when it comes to it. Sometimes literally. That's not even a joke. Case in point. So, yeah. You can... Yeah. Being a handsome devil. Emphasis on the devil part. Because, I mean, what is a devil? A creature who is wont to spread mischief and or destruction or evil doesn't stop women from indulging in them or having sex with them, and sometimes having children with them. The long and short of red pill to black pill advice is this is what is effective. This is what women respond to. Whether it's a morally good thing or not is totally up for you to decide, but here's the long and short of it. Women respond to men that act more aggressively. Women respond to men that have higher social status. Women respond to X, Y, and Z. Now, of course, the type of women you're responding to can be thrown into the question. For example, if you go on your Fresh and Fit and you're like, your main demographic of ladies you're trying to court are the Instagram baddies, well, then yeah, that is what they're going to respond to. I mean, that's just the effective measure of it all. The reality is, even if that is the case, generally speaking, having more money, more resources, having more social status, and having a physically fit body doesn't even mean you have to indulge as a high-value male is told to do. That's all the philosophizing that you find with your Fresh and Fit types. You don't have to do that. However, generally speaking, All of those attributes are attractive to women. If you went and you took that to like the countryside, I don't know, like Utah, or I don't know, like Alabama, somewhere in the West or somewhere in the Midwest, somewhere like in Mississippi, and you found some cute chick that worked at like Denny's or worked as a server, chances are you probably could court her. Now, is it possible that a 6 foot tall man that is able to travel and only wants to be with one woman, like let's just say he really does have the character to do that, is it possible that he meets the server at IHOP and she looks at him and says, no, yes, but the probability of that happening is astronomically lower than if an overweight, smelly, fat guy, we're just playing with extremes right now, okay guys, went and asked the same thing. Now, here's where this actually goes one step farther, right? Because the one step farther is if an average okay guy that's like a software programmer, and even then they can probably make a good amount of money, that's a bit of a dweeb, just, to give you the archetype in your brain, he does the same thing to the server, it might work, but the chances are, the probability, which is the most important aspect here when it comes to human psychology, is that it probably is not going to work. And that is the kerfuffle, that's the stress that these young males are dealing with. What can I do that works versus what can I do that doesn't work, and what should I avoid? That's what dating advice in the red pill is always about. Whether it, again, all the determinism stuff, that's some more of the philosophy, but the effectiveness remains to be true. Does it work or does it not? And generally speaking, this stuff works more than it doesn't, which you would think should say more about women, but I guess it doesn't, because God forbid we ever criticize women.
These people just peddling patriarchy, misogyny, and white supremacy disguised as courses. And they're extremely irresponsible for doing so.
Now, listen, I understand I made a video response about Jordan Peterson, and that's why the thumbnail of that was the Civil War. As in, I feel that we're two guys who have a disagreement, okay? However, Jordan Peterson, of all people, should not be labeled a misogynist, especially when I had to make a video against him saying this very phrase right here.
I would say to young men who are irritated at women is, if you're irritated at women, as a class of creature, there's something wrong with you, because they're right. You're wrong. They're right to not pick you. If they're not picking you, it's because they're right.
Yeah, that's what... So again, as I said in the video, I love Jordan B. Peterson. I think he is genuinely more helpful astronomically than he is hurtful. I disagreed with him there. But that's the thing. That thing there, if anything is a clear reflection that he's not a misogynist, I don't really know what is. If anything, he overvalues women's ability to mate select and overvalues women's ability to say what is deemed worthy as a man and what isn't. I don't know what else to say. That's just dumb. The other guy didn't really even say anything that was even kind of close to misogyny. But without proper context, I can't get into it. And Mr. Tate, look, man, I got videos on Mr. Tate. Just go look at them.
The truth is that people are individuals, and you need to tailor your approach on a case-by-case basis.
Again, more deconstruction than reconstruction. Advice that's tailored to have people generally doesn't work because people are individuals deconstructing it. So where's the reconstruction? Because the reality is you're not really going to know what to do with the individual woman until you meet said individual woman. But here's the irony. As it turns out, human beings are not that different from each other. Granted, there are as much differences as there are similarities, which might sound like an oxymoron, but it really isn't. What it means is that you can find people with so many different similar traits that have never conversed or talked to each other. My experience as a substitute teacher really taught me just about archetypes. How literally you can find the same type of kid that can have the same type of opinions in different areas that have never even talked to each other. The dweeb, nerd, scene kids. They're archetypes for a reason. They may not be the most astute, but you can pick out different opinions, different mannerisms, different expressions from different groups of people and how they operate. How does it all work? I don't know. But the long and short of it is, People do share lots of similarities, and as such is the same for young ladies. In fact, women regularly talk about their similar experiences all of the time. How could they do that if they're all just so individualistic and they all just have different experiences and they all just don't, there's nothing they agree on? Of course, generally speaking, there are some things that women are going to accept and understand. It doesn't mean every single woman ever, because that's an informal statement. But for the most part, you can count on that women are going to have some shared experience, the same way you can count on men are going to have a shared experience. The reality is, you can't tailor advice through a wider audience on an individual basis. You would need some type of counseling. You need somewhere to actually break this down and talk about it. But sometimes there are general things that are going to make you more attractive. That's what the red pill is saying. That's what the manosphere is saying. There are general things that for the most part, most women are going to respond favorably. Not every single one of them, but most of them. It's better to probably have a nice aesthetic body if you're trying to attract women than to have an average plain Jane body or plain Jim. I'm going to say plain Jim body.
Just like the issue that I had with that tweet from earlier, the type of advice that the right likes to give, especially catered to young men, is how to get girls. And you're damn right you ain't gonna get that over here.
So, when the main motivator of young men is that they want to be loved by a woman, and then you tell them that you're not going to give them advice on how to be loved by a woman, where is the shock or confusion as to why they don't want to join your group? That's what they want. What they want more than anything else is not the upholstery of the mystical patriarchy doomsday creature that's after you, you know? It's like, it's not what they desire. The desire is women. They want to be loved by women. They're not trying to sing praise unto the patriarchy as it comes from on high to, like, destroy everything. That's ridiculous.
The mere sentence, how to get girls, is a self-report. Because what do you mean by get? They're not property. And if you're trying to figure out different strategies, it's almost as if you're trying to game them into getting them. And I assume that you mean getting sex from them. Doesn't that sound like a little bit more coercive?
You know, I'm going to give him half of a point despite the fact that that was one of the most autistic readings of that point. It is true, a lot of this advice from the red pill or manosphere is not really about how to have long-term functional relationships. In fact, a lot of the time you are taught to not want to be married to a woman, or you're told all of the dangers of being married to a woman. There's no real nuance or any balanced approach to it at all. It's that you don't get married. And God forbid you're Hafiz and you attempt to bring that in, then people are going to get upset with you for some odd reason, because anyway, long and short of it is, you're not really going to get that long, balanced take of that stuff, where you look at all the different dangers and how to minimize it. You kind of get to a hard stop of just don't do it and for the most part, you do get to this extent where you can only really be promiscuous, or you can spin plates, or you can just like kind of float around a woman, but you can't really connect to her. Now, of course, there is an obvious fundamental problem here, an obvious two-step, an obvious oversight. And that obvious oversight is, well, how do kids end up in single-parent homes? Oh, that's right. The fathers are either ejected from the homes or the father was never there to begin with. And do you think that really promiscuously having sex isn't the thing that would probably more than likely put you in a state where you not only cannot be an influence of your kid, you can't see your kid, or you may not even know he exists? Yeah, promoting the very thing that you also are besmirching as a problem, that is rampant promiscuity and or single motherhood, probably is a bit of a spit in the face to the whole spin plates and do all that jazz and nonsense.
Sentence, how to get girls, is a self-report. Because what do you mean by get? They're not property. And if you're trying to figure out different strategies, it's almost as if you're trying to game them.
Well, precisely. A thing that you have to come into consideration is that a lot of these dudes are nerds. They are. I like video games. I love video games. I think video games offer so many great analogies that are just perfectly reflective of this. One of those analogies is how a lot of advice that's given from the red pill is about overstatting. And that is, you train yourself so much so that anything beneath you is really trivial and easy to accomplish. Now, of course, I think for obvious reasons, it's a little bit goofy. The reason why is because not everyone can overstat to the top 10 to 1%. I think that kind of should go a little bit without saying. And the endeavor of becoming really aesthetic as a musculature is also an endeavor that can take literally years. And then changing your mindset from wanting to be loved to one woman is also really difficult, because a lot of the times men that end up having this abundance of women find that it is actually rather hollow and annoying and depressing. So the long and short of it is, if you were to criticize the overstating advice, then I would be fine. But what you can't argue is the effectiveness of the advice. Effectively, if you do manage to become this, then yeah, you're probably going to find yourself having sex with a lot of women. Effectively, that's true, but of course, life is far more complex than the one individual who can make it to the top. There's a whole society that's beneath that, which you're not addressing at all. Nothing you say addresses that. You're right, these guys are nerdy, geeky, dweeby guys that play lots of video games who then find a way to take that same obsession with video games and understanding the worlds and applying it to women. But without something to help them bridge the gap, they're not going to get to a stronger understanding of women. Again, it's a bit reductionist in some areas, sure, but it's a lot better than, I'm not going to help you at all.
And I assume that you mean getting sex from them. Doesn't that sound like a little bit more coercive?
Not if they want to do it. If you become the very thing that they want, where's the coercion? Where's the convincing? If you are what they want, what are you talking about? If the entire advice is to shift and morph yourself to be what women want, where the fuck is the coercion?
You don't get girls because they're not property, at least anymore. You have to treat people like people. And once you start doing that, you can see the success.
So, essentially, what we have here is a criticism, a deconstruction, as I have said, of dating advice, but nothing to really actually help these males out. The last thing you say is just being a decent person is enough. The only problem is being a decent person didn't get these men the results. You have to assume, you have to come to the conclusion just from off rip that these men were never decent, that these men weren't kind, that these men didn't try, that these men weren't loving. The reality is very many of them were, and that is what makes them resentful from start to finish. This is the stuff that leads them to Andrew Tate from start to finish. Or maybe from middle to finish, because obviously it was them being rejected by women or mistreated by them or used by them that got them here. And without having healthy, strong, positive relationships with women, just as good friends, there's no frame of reference to counter all of the negative interactions that they've had since the time that they were probably 12 to 14. You have to think about that. From the time you're 14, you're being mistreated by women. What conclusion are they supposed to come to if there's never any positivity from women to balance out the fact that they get a lot of negativity? Honestly, the only conclusion is they probably should be resentful, or they probably should be hateful, because all they ever have is just being treated poorly. Men don't come to the conclusion of disliking women because they never got treated badly by them. It's because they were treated badly by them. And unless you address that anger, unless you actually talk to them about this and show them positive, healthy views of women, you can't just conclude this with just be decent. That isn't helpful. Most of these dudes are not the socially retarded doofuses that so many of the leftists like to say. Most of these dudes aren't so remedial and can't take a shower and can't shave in their haircuts. Most of these dudes aren't like that. They're well enough to do average young males that don't understand why doing exactly what women said to do, being a nice guy, being respectful, being kind, sometimes being a leftist, being a feminist. Why doesn't it work? You told me to do this, I did it, and now you disrespect me. Now you treat me poorly. You're not trying to have sex with me. You don't even like me, let alone want to have sex with me. You use me, you abuse me, you mistreat me. What am I doing wrong? And then they come to the red pill. And what do they learn? That they aren't good enough. That they did mess up. That they are wrong. That they are beta. But here's the difference. If they do everything right, they're going to at least get to have sex with these women. It doesn't mean they'll be loved by them, but they can have sex with them. And I guess having sex with them is probably a lot better than being mistreated and never being cared about at all in the first place. The reality is, the pendulum swings to each end. It isn't until it stops in the middle are we really going to be able to actually be effective in helping people have better relationships. It makes perfect sense why young men are going to want to be into the red pill. Not only does it really address that hunger and desire for men to understand how the world works, whether it's wrong or right in some areas does need to be challenged sometimes, but the long and short of it is, it's something. You can't tell young men to just do nothing and to just be. That's not good advice. It's not even advice at all. It's anti-advice. The red pill challenges them to be better people in some regard. Maybe not necessarily morally, but at least in a materialistic way, at least in a metric way, a clear, understandable, actionable plan to some degree. I need to go to the gym. I need to get a better job. I need to figure out how to spin these different plates. I need to figure out how women work. I need to take advantage of their hypergamy. This is all actionable things. These are all, this is something. And unless you deal with the fact that the red pill has something and you leftists have nothing, I don't understand how you can be confused as to why young men flock to this. The number one thing men want is not the upholstery of this gigantic conglomerate of the patriarchal system or white supremacy or whatever nonsense. What men want is women. And they're going to go to the place that teaches them how to get women. So unless you address that, honestly, it's much better if you guys all just shut the fuck up. So with that being said, I just hope you guys got something out of today's video. And if you did, go and click the like button. Yeah, shoot. Go and click that subscribe button. Comment in the comments below. And as always, you guys have yourselves a great day. I should have called you guys cool cats. I apologize for that.